Huh. Hey guys, what's up? It's the coach here investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to do an album review on the latest Car Seat Headrest album, Making a Door Less Open. Yeah, Will Toledo, he's back. He and his band, also known as Car Seat Headrest, one of my favorite bands of the 2010s, they are back. And boy, was I anticipating for a new Car Seat Headrest album, because their two previous albums are both instant classics. First of all, we have Teens of Denial, a really emotional, youthful, powerful, and just moving indie rock album that explores just the feelings of being a troubled teen. And we also have the album Twin Fantasy, both the original, the very lo-fi, crappy production Bandcamp album Twin Fantasy, and the remake of Twin Fantasy in the year 2018. Both of these albums are great. Of course, the remake is just so criminally underrated. I love every single bit about this album. Also, what the hell is going on in here? I mean, listening back to the remake of Twin Fantasy, I still get the feels because tracks like Cute Things, the album opener, the album ending, Beach, Life and Death, all these tracks, Sober to Death, High to Death, all these tracks just fill me with just pure heartbreaking emotions. It's really undescribable. And then again, throwback to Teens of Denial, tracks like Drunk Drivers and Killer Whales is one of my favorite songs of the decade. So you can tell how much I enjoy Car Seat Headrest music. And then recently they dropped Making a Door Less Open. And it is a pretty odd change of pace. I guess how I would describe this change of pace is that he's gone Indietronic. And by Indietronic, I mean he is incorporating way more electronic production in his music, more bleeps and bloops, drum machines, more synthesizers, less raw organic guitars, and that is not a problem because there is a lot of amazing Indietronic music out there, and I feel like someone like Will Toledo can definitely pull it off with his really strong songwriting skills and also his very memorable lyrics. But unfortunately, that's not the case here, not because the change in direction doesn't work for Will Toledo, but it's that the songwriting itself on the tracks on this album, the hooks, the verses, the choruses, they all just, well, not all, but most of them just don't really work as well as expected. The album opens up with Weightlifters, which I think is definitely one of the better tracks on the album. Starting off, it's very ear grabbing. It sounds very interesting. It grabs my attention with its droning synths, its marching drums, and then it sort of builds up to a driving alt rock song. And overall, it's a pretty good intro about how Will Toledo wants to start lifting weights and start actually building a good body. The second track, Can't Cool Me Down, is a bit of a disappointing track given that it is the first single leading up to the album. It's a low-key indie-tronic track with a really stripped back and dry instrumental. The hook is okay, but the vocals are kinda underwhelming given how quiet and lazy they sound. The vocal harmonies during the intro didn't really help at all, and overall the tone of the track just feels kind of tame and kind of forgettable. The third track, Deadline's Hostile, is easily my favorite track on the album. It sounds like a track extracted from the Twin Fantasy or the Teens of Denial era, really, because of how organic and fiery and emotional it sounds, even though it isn't as good as some of the best Car Seat Headrest stuff I've ever heard, but it's still very solid of a track, very memorable of a track. The chorus is sharp, it's fiery, it's blaring and it's loud and unapologetic, and I like it a lot. And then afterwards, we have the track Hollywood, which is another really strange track on the entire album. It sounds like a parody of an old garage rock Beck song. And while I do low key like the bass line in the beginning of the track, but it just quickly changes into this really awkward early 2000s edgy garage rock song with wild, zany, whack vocals. Hollywood makes me wanna puke. And, what? The next track, Hymn Remix, is one of the more ambitious cuts on the entire album because the entire track is this really weird, experimental, chopped up, abrasive, drenched in electronic screaming track where it has these revving bass and these spamming, slamming beats, and on top of it, we get Will Toledo just screaming, I guess, in a way, and we also get these crazy wailing synths and guitar solo sort of muddled and chopped up onto the track. It actually sounds really interesting, and it's a really engaging build-up, and I kind of enjoyed that. The next track, Martin, while it isn't drenched in electronics, and it's very much within Car Seat Headrest's usual wheelhouse with its punchy drums, raw, fiery guitars. Its songwriting really doesn't feel all that great either. It's just decent at best. The drums on the track, however, it's kind of all over the place, and I don't really know if it's supposed to add a special effect onto the track or not, because it just sounds kind of messy. And the songwriting is not that strong, even though the track itself doesn't sound that bad. And then afterwards, we have Deadline's Thoughtful, which is very much an extension to the third track on the album, Deadline's Hostile. And it's basically an extension, but with squawking electronics, with a very driving, constant dance disco beat, and with a little synth lead in the middle that's very much Crystal Castles-esque, and also a very impressive climactic ending, which is kind of memorable. And then immediately afterwards, the rest of the album is just kind of underwhelming. We have What's With You Lately, which is this 90-second long, quiet, low-key ballad, kind of acoustic ballad, and I'm not against very short, brief, quiet, low-key ballads. Again, if you look back to, say, Twin Fantasy, we have the Stop Smoking We Love You song, which, even though isn't one of the more memorable Car Seat Headrest cuts, it still sticks to me as a really nice palate cleanser. It still serves as a bit of a cool down moment, but I feel like this track is telling a totally different story here, where the vocals and the guitars are just drenched in so much effects. I guess it tries to sound like this nostalgic sunset warm ballad thing, but it just didn't really pan out all that well. And then we have the track Life Worth Missing, which again isn't that bad of a song. It's an okay alt rock song with a Bowie-esque chorus. It has some driving drums and some stripped back keyboards, maybe a little too stripped back. And overall, I think the songwriting is just not strong enough. Another kind of forgettable track on the track list. The next track, There Must Be More Than Blood, is unfortunately kind of underwhelming song as well. 7.5 minutes. And again, I have nothing against long Car Seat Headrest songs. I mean, we have tracks like Famous Prophets. It's 16 minutes long, and yet it's engaging almost completely. And then we have this track, and it's the opposite of engaging. It is nearly structureless. We get these rigid, repetitive beats and these redundant synths just constantly spamming and slamming. And then it just drifts away, and by the time the track actually reaches its climax, I really can't pay any attention anymore. And the album ends off with Famous, which is, for me, the most head-scratching and confusing track on the album in terms of the production, because the instrumentals, the beats, the vocals, everything, every layer of sound on the track just collide against one another, and it just sounds like a total friggin' mess. It sounds like a bunch of flies just swarming around, buzzing around, and I can't really tell which is which, what is what. I think there are talk box vocals on the track. There are auto-tuned talk box vocals for some reason, and then we get these repetitive lyrics, change your mind, which is really confusing, and the verses are half sung, half spoken word, which is just not really fitting given how chaotic the instrumentals already are. And you can say that, oh yeah, the chaotic instrumentals, all of them clashing together adds an abrasive effect, but it's not used in a creative way, it's not used in an artistic or engaging way. Instead, it just sounds like a total pointless mess, and I'm kind of disappointed. So, yeah, overall, I am kind of disappointed with this album. I don't think it's terrible. It certainly has potential. It certainly has its fiery, organic, and powerful moments on the album, but also there are moments where the production is just sort of a mess. The songwriting is kind of weak. The vocals are not as impressive as they were in previous projects. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. My favorite track here is Deadline's Hostel, and my least favorite is Famous. I am giving Car Seat Headrests Making a Door Less Open a strong 5 out of 10, unfortunately. So, have you listened to Car Seat Headrests Making a Door Less Open? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.